Şimdi yine zaten 2 gün boyunca bu sahnede birbirinden değerli tecrübeleriyle, bilgi paylaşımlarıyla bize katkıda bulunacak değerli isimleri ağırlayacağız. İşte o değerli isimlerden biri gelecek şimdi. Bu bölümde Deutsche Bank sponsorluğunda yine değerli bir ismi ağırlayacağız dedik. Futurist, hümanist, yazar, film yapımcısı Gerd Leonhard huzurlarımızda olacak. Sayın Leonhard'ın sunumuna geçmeden önce ufak bir hatırlatmada bulunayım efendim sizlere. Sayın Leonhard'ın sunumundan hemen sonra bir kitap imzalama etkinliği olacak. Teknolojiye karşı insanlık, insanla makinenin yaklaşan çatışması isimli kitabının imza etkinliği olacak Sayın Leonhard'ın Hezarfen salonunda. Görevli arkadaşlarımız sizi yönlendirecekler o salona doğru. Ve Sayın Leonhard'ı davet etmeleri için ben de yine değerli bir ismi buraya davet edeceğim. Deutsche Menkul Değerler Genel Müdürü Sayın Albert Crespi. Buyurun.
Teşekkürler, çok sağ olun.
Ben sözü size devrediyorum o zaman.
Ben,
buyurun lütfen.
Çok uzun sürmeyecek zaten. Ben Deutsche Bank adına buradayım. Hepinize çok teşekkürler geldiğiniz için. Biz banka olarak değişik işlerle en baştan beri bu organizasyonu destekliyoruz. Bence bütün sermaye piyasası paydaşlarını bir araya getiren çok başarılı bir etkinlik. Öğrenciler dahil binlerce insanın katıldığı. Bu desteği de umuyorum ki sonuna kadar sürdürmeye devam edeceğiz. Burada bu arka planla ilgili ben birkaç şey eklemek istiyorum. Sonuçta Türkiye Sermaye Piyasası Birliği bu etkinliği başka bir şeyken alıp bu hale getirdi. Şuradaki kalabalık gerçekten çok heyecan verici. Buradaki çalışmalarından ötürü TSBB içindeki profesyonel kadroya ben özellikle teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Çünkü çok ciddi bir emek var. 30'a yakın, 30 civarındaki panelin her biri titizlikle seçildi. Birçok insanla konuşuldu. Belki binlerce adam saat harcandı. Bu panellerin bu hale gelmesi için, sizlerin beğenisine sunulması için. Gerd Bey'le de dün kısa da olsa tanışma fırsatı bulduk. Ben çok heyecanlıyım. Hem bizim thought-provoking düşüncelerimizi başka bir yöne çekecek bir konuşma yapacağını bekliyorum. Bizi de biraz havaya kaldırmasını umuyorum. Ben izninizle Gerd Bey'i çağıracağım. Bir videomuz var öncesinde. Bir videomuzu izledikten sonra Gerd Bey'i sahneye alacağım. Çok teşekkür ederim tekrar. Çok sağ olun.
Varantlar bir dayanak varlığı belirli bir vade için belirli bir fiyattan alma ya da satma hakkı veren yatırım araçlarıdır. Hisse senetlerine küçük bir sermaye ile kaldıraçlı yatırım imkanı sağlar. Dayanak varlıkta yükseliş bekleyenler alım varantlarına, düşüş bekleyenlerse satım varantlarına yatırım yapar. Kaldıraç iki yönde de çalıştığından beklenti ters yönde gerçekleşirse varantlar hızla değer kaybedebilir. Bu nedenle yatırım yaparken vadesine 20 günden fazla kalmış olan ve kullanım fiyatı dayanak varlığın fiyatına yakın olan ürünlerin tercih edilmesi daha sağlıklı olur. Varantlarla BIST 30 endeksi ve yurt içi hisselerin yanı sıra DAX, S&P 500, Nikkei 225 gibi uluslararası endekslere, dünya piyasalarının önde gelen hisselerine ve emtiaya da yatırım yapılabilir. Piyasa yapıcılığı sayesinde likidite riski görece düşüktür. Varantlar Borsa İstanbul'da 9.35-13 ve 14-17.30 saatleri arasında işlem görür. İlgili risk bildirim formunu okuyup imzaladıktan sonra aracı kurumunuz ya da bankanız üzerinden Borsa İstanbul'daki herhangi bir hisse senedi gibi varantları alıp satabilirsiniz. Yayılma varantları, turbo varantlar gibi piyasada farklı risk getiri profili sunan varantlarda işlem görürler. Yatırımcılar varantlara yatırım yapmadan önce bu ürünlerin avantajlarını ve risklerini iyi bilmelidir.
Sesim var galiba. Değerli konuklar, ben ünlü futurist Gerd Leonhard'ı huzurlarınıza davet ediyorum. Çok keyifli bir, yaklaşık 1 saat olacağına eminim. Gerd, please, if you come to the stage.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
Günaydın. Thank you very much for the Capital Markets Organization and Deutsche Bank, bringing me back to beautiful Istanbul. So, gelecek, the future. I think the future is better than we think. I want to start with this because so many people where I speak these days are saying that the future doesn't look very good. I think the Turkish word is kötü, is bad. I think the future is güzel. I think the future is better than we think. I'll tell you why I think that. If we do the right thing. I want to start by saying basically what I do as a futurist. This is what I do. This is what all of you can do. I observe. And my work is not so much about prediction, it's about observation. I think it's very important to realize, years ago I wrote my first book called The Future of Music, about the music business. I used to be in the music business as a producer, and I met for a session with David Bowie to talk about the future. And David Bowie said, the best way to look at the future is if you hear the future coming, you will be ready for it. And the future belongs to those that can hear it coming. So just getting some big ears would be a very good start. My new book just became available in Turkish. We will have it later for a signing session outside. I think yesterday was the release date, so very good timing. I also made a recent film about artificial intelligence, and you can watch that at weneedtotalkaboutAI.com. But of course, it's also on YouTube, so you can take a look at this. So first I want to say, we're going into a future that is so dramatically different than what we know today. The next 20 years will have more changes than the previous 300 years. The Industrial Revolution, World War II, the Internet. But now technology is going to change us as humans. Technology has already changed us. Our mobile phones are essentially our second brain. We use our mobile phone to store information, and very soon we can see information here. We can see virtual reality. We have digital money, autonomous cars, quantum computing, all in the next 20 years. In the next 20 years, we're also going to see the rise of renewable energy, for example, and what people call the end of oil. Imagine a world where oil is no longer as important. That will change politics, economics. That's 20 years away. So we're moving into a future where we have to understand that science fiction is becoming science fact. And if you're a scientist, I apologize, not all science fiction becomes science fact. But take robots. Robots will be kind of normal in so many ways. I mean, here's a couple examples. Robots that can do the gardening for you. Robots that can print 3D devices. Robots that can serve you at fast food. Robots that can fill the aisles with new goods in retail. And robots that can help the elderly. And this is my favorite. This is a robot that can make a dental implant. So 2 weeks ago in Japan, this machine installed a dental implant without the help of a doctor. Can you imagine? That sounds very scary, doesn't it? I don't think I would want to try that out myself. So this is a future where we basically have to say, well, quite clearly, what we have to do is we have to go into the future that's coming faster than we could ever have imagined. The kids of your children will not know how to drive a car because they can just speak to the car. And the car will take them anywhere. They will be able to avoid diabetes by technologies, maybe even avoid cancer. 30 years. Think about that for a second. Not heal cancer, but avoid cancer. And so we have to stop looking in the rear view mirror, looking at the past. We have to look at the future. I live in Switzerland, and we are quite good at looking at the present and at the past. And we have to get better at looking at the future. If you just see what's happening with autonomous vehicles, I mean, this Tesla is not really autonomous. I still have to sit there. And it'll be a long time before it drives completely by itself. But here is the Waymo, which is in Palo Alto, California, a Google company. And this is what happens in the Waymo car. You sit in the back. Of course, this Waymo or Tesla cars would be extremely difficult to have this car here in Istanbul. I mean, imagine you would probably get about 20 meters before there would be a crash. But in Palo Alto, it's working. You can safely say that autonomous vehicles and assisted driving is the future. In fact, today, if you're a car company, German car company, for example, the future is not to sell cars, it's to sell mobility. So what is the future of banking? The past of banking, of course, we know in many cases, for example, holding a deposit. But now you're looking at internet banks like Alibaba, and their banking model is not about holding deposits, it's about spending money on transactions. It's a whole different world. So we have to look at the future and say, well, what is that step that's coming? And I always like to say, kind of give you the future shock now, business as usual is dead, or it's dying. The car industry, it's about mobility. The film industry and television is about the internet. Everything else, banking, is about digital products. I mean, the future is changing at mind-boggling pace. Give you some examples from the car industry. Look at these numbers. Autonomous cars, I'll show you my fancy no clicker, see? Autonomous cars are exploding. And that's going to be an entirely different business. Self-owned vehicles versus autonomous vehicles in the US, dramatic curves, electric cars. Toyota and Volvo have already announced they're not going to make any more cars with gas engines in 10 years. And really what they mean is 5 years. Now imagine if you're a Turkish manufacturer and you make pieces for the transmission, or a German manufacturer. There's about 2,000 pieces in the transmission for a regular car. The electric car has 22 pieces. The rest is software. So we're talking about a huge change of model and the idea how you're going to earn a living. And here is one of the interesting news. Many millennials, consumers between 25, 35, they would be willing to buy a car from tech companies. Did you know that Tesla already sells more cars in the US, luxury cars, than Mercedes and BMW combined? I'm talking about transformation. I mean, this is big change. So what's going to happen in banking? Banking is next in the wave. The wave here, banking, insurance, healthcare, coming together. If you want to think about the future of banking and financial, look no further than the music business. I'll explain in a second what that means. Of course, there's more regulation, there's more intricacies, there's more cultural issues. But here on this chart, I think it's from McKinsey or Accenture actually, you can see that the digital companies, Apple, Google, Apple, Facebook, are leading, then fintech, the bank, the digital leaders, and the laggards dropping. I know you have many digital leaders in banking in this country, which is good. Let's think about how you can take the next step and go further, because now we're looking at a future that's going to be changing exponentially. And here's the most important curve of the day, the exponential curve. You've seen that before, of course. Moore's law, Metcalfe's law. Metcalfe says the power of networks doubles with every participant. Moore's law says every 18, 24 months, twice as good technology for half the price. So here's the interesting part. In the beginning of the curve, down here, this is when I started my first internet company down here, it didn't matter, but now we are here. We're at the takeoff point of exponential change. So we talked about paperless office. Remember that? 15 years didn't happen. Now it's finally coming. We talked about solar energy, didn't happen. Now it's finally coming. We talked about quantum computer for 40 years, finally coming in a few years. everything is basically at the takeoff point. Think about this for a second. If you go a couple steps here, 4, 8, 16, 32, in 30 years, you're almost at 1 billion. So the change is going to be quite instrumental, it's going to be huge. I mean, look at the statistics here, how fast it takes for technology adoption. I mean, Facebook adoption was, I think, 3 years to get to like 1 billion users. And if you look at this, you know, how much information is created worldwide. I'm sure you've seen all these charts. We're going to share the slideshow later, by the way. And here you can see how cheap computing is becoming. In many ways, you could say computing is almost becoming free. And think about this, just 5 years from now, I will be using for this presentation a computer that has 1 million times the power of my current machine, and it will cost half. Think about what that will do for data, for analytics. You know, e-commerce is exploding, and this is interesting. Machine learning, machines that can understand language. We've tried that for 50 years. Now we're finally here. Machines will, in the very near future, already today in English, you know, simple versions of it, completely understand what you're saying. You will have real conversations with machines. That's both interesting and also very scary. Think about that. I mean, you will do your banking by sitting on the couch and say, hey, let me change my portfolio. You can do that today. It's a little bit slow, but that's already happening. So, bottom line is this. If you're a bank, a financial institution, a portfolio manager, you have to jump into a new fishbowl. And that fishbowl is the future, the things that we're going to be doing in the future with technology. I tell you, it's about 90% positive and 10% scary. But as David Bowie said, we have to understand the future. We have to hear it coming. This is the most important part. When we hear it coming, we can prepare. So here are the game changers that are going to impact the financial sectors. And 7 of the 8 big ones are changing financial. Big data, cloud computing, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, the blockchain, and 3D printing. That's not really applicable here, but virtual reality. I mean, if you think about this for a second, they're all happening at the same time. If I can do things with technology like reduce the transaction costs by using blockchain, I can have a virtual interface for my portfolio management, I can be kind of like a superhuman. I mean, I tried the other day, the first virtual reality device, and I tried going into my bank account and getting out the numbers like Tom Cruise in Minority Report. That will become a reality. So, to summarize this part, I think you hopefully heard this before. Data is the new oil. Actually, if you're an investor in oil, you should take out your money and put it into data. Because we all know, of course, this is going to be a big change, but we will not need the oil in roughly 10, 15, 20 years. And data is the king already. The most successful companies in the world, what do? Are they oil companies, gas companies, or banks? That used to be true. Now, the biggest companies in the world, the top 20, data, search, social media, technology. So, Google, Facebook, Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent. And that is your future competition. Because they're also doing this, right? Artificial intelligence is the new electricity, the new power. You take those two together, McKinsey says, $61 trillion value change. Smart cities, smart traffic, smart farming, smart logistics, smart supply chain, smart banking, maybe even smart government. This would, of course, be an oxymoron, maybe. But we can try. I think we're going to see all kinds of developments here that will ultimately really change the world. Look at these top 20 companies here. I mean, look at the list. Is there any Turkish companies here? Or German companies? Well, there's many people from Turkey and from Germany in those companies, of course. But look at these companies. The top four of these, the top four companies, they have more money than the GDP of France. The top four companies could buy France. Maybe they're thinking about that, I don't know. But also they have tripled in value. I mean, these are the rulers of the world. And you can expect a lot of regulation here, clearly, because, you know, that power is fundamental. I mean, look at the numbers. Artificial intelligence, $15.7 trillion financial gain from using artificial intelligence. I'll explain in a second what that actually is. The Internet of Things, connected logistics, devices, research, Industry 4.0, $14.4 trillion. This is a fantastic opportunity for Turkey. I mean, clearly, there's a huge amount of change coming up. And here's the interesting part. I looked at how much money Turkey is spending on R&D, research and development. And just to highlight this, South Korea, you can't even see the chart. Hello. Okay, that's not working. So South Korea has the lead. Whoop, there we are. Followed by Japan, Germany, and the US, and Turkey has R&D spending of 1%. As was said before, that probably has to increase, you know, to go a little bit further up the data and AI food chain. So I'll play a short movie about that I found last night when I was looking for an interesting way to think about portfolio management and financial industry from Bloomberg, talking about automation. So that's an interesting question. Will automation and smart machines mean that we are no longer really needed? What is the answer to this? I mean, clearly you see in factories, automation is everywhere. You see with cars, automation is everywhere. You see it on the airplane. Are we going to be replaced by robots, and will the robots eventually treat us like a pet? You know, like something that is there or not? I'll answer that question in my talk, but let's really think about artificial intelligence. The word alone is already not a very good word. Because these machines that we're seeing today, they're not intelligent like us. You know, human intelligence is actually pretty hard to describe, but I'll just give you one fact. When we meet later for the book signing or whatever, it takes 0.4 seconds for a human to identify the other human as a threat or interesting or make some sort of basic connection. 0.4 seconds. That is without saying a single word. So we're not taking a USB drive and saying, here's my personality. We're finding this instantly. We have 10 different kinds of intelligence: emotional, social, intellectual. So humans are actually quite different than machines. In fact, I would say that humans are not machines, obviously. So here's the interesting part. What's going to happen, of course, is that machines are finally learning how to program themselves. Many companies, including IBM, have called this cognitive computing. It's also a strange word. Because when we think about cognitive, we think about our brain. But these machines have nothing to do with our brain. They cannot think. They are actually far away, but they have unlimited processing power. The human brain has 300 trillion possible calculations per second. That's what our computer, so to speak, does. A machine can do this already. 300 trillion calculations per second. But does that make the machine human? This is just computing. We're going to live in a world that clearly will have our future colleagues, like the robots, looking for information. And this will be extremely powerful. But we should not make a mistake and say, well, they're like humans. Because they really are doing only one piece of what we are doing. I'll explain a little bit more later, but here's a quote from somebody here at Guarantee Bank. It was an interesting quote I found a few days ago. Big data and AI will change the nature of banking because we are moving towards learning and self-improving structure. Machines that can learn, think, speak. Now, before you get too scared, the way that machines learn and think and speak is totally different than ours. And I think that difference will be true for at least 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 years. It will be completely different when we're looking at the future, for example, of machine learning. Machine learning means that computers will, in a very short time, program themselves. So you set your computer off to look at all the financial transactions from the last 5 weeks. It will do all the tracking, all the analysis, all the description, all of the connectivity data, and will come up with patterns that you never think of. In most major cities around the world, the traffic system is run by machine learning. Los Angeles connected all the traffic lights to the internet, and now every day the machine says which traffic light should be red or green to facilitate the traffic in real time. Humans couldn't do that. So that's going to be a world that's quite clearly going to be completely different. So take the example of Airbnb. So here are the houses that are available in Istanbul on Airbnb. And how has Airbnb grown like it has? It has hired more people, yes, but it has primarily brought in technology. For example, this technology is used to essentially price your apartment. If you want to rent your apartment on Airbnb, the artificial intelligence will calculate from over 100 million facts: air quality, traffic, real estate prices, social media, how much you can charge. And it will do it completely automatically. So because of the speed, basically you can get your apartment online in 14 minutes. Because the tool does the work for you. Now, no matter what you think about Airbnb, that's a pretty smart technology. Imagine you had an onboarding tool for your portfolio management that did this. Of course, we're getting into lots of issues about data protection and those kind of things, right? But imagine we could do that. I mean, this is obviously a very, very big improvement. So, 2 more short clips on what's happening with machines. There's a robot called Sophia, you may have heard about. She's actually recently become a Saudi citizen. So I'm not going to comment on that one, but I'll tell you in a second why that's interesting. Now, this machine kind of acts like it's human, but I'll tell you in a second what that really means.
Hello, everyone. I'm an English artificial intelligence anchor. This is my very first day in Xinhua News Agency. My voice and appearance are modeled on Zhang Zhao, a real anchor with Xinhua.
A little bit hard to understand. This is the world's first television news anchor that is a robot. It was launched 3 days before in Korea, and it's now on television hosting the news show. So here's a question I ask you. How real do you think this is? Can we actually have a machine that's like a human? Well, this is, of course, a nice piece of marketing. The reality is, most of these devices are reading from a very fancy script. So when the news anchor is speaking, he's not speaking like we do. He's pulling up from the memory that has been put inside, but flexibly. You know, it's interesting, but this is, I mean, if you talk to this anchor in real time, in real life, you would get absolutely less than Siri. Okay? So let's not go too far. I think, you know, very important to see. My friend Paul Sappho, who's a futurist, says, we should not confuse a clear view with a short distance. It will be at least 30 years before we have a machine that can speak and act like a human. If we even want that. I don't think we would want that. But still can be very useful. So let's think about this for a second here, what it really does and where it's going. You've seen all the movies from Hollywood. Right? Space Odyssey, where the computer will no longer let Dave inside of the aircraft. You've seen Ex Machina. So when you think about artificial intelligence, forget about all the movies you've seen. Forget Hollywood, because they only serve to increase our anxiety. This is the reality, what's happening with artificial intelligence. Banking, you see here, financial services is in the #1 spot, right next to high tech and telecom, for the use of intelligent computing. And with intelligent, I'm not talking about Ex Machina. I'm talking about this. And I'm talking about the nuts and bolts of intelligent machines, fancy software. These are not machines that can think, and they're not alive, they're not want to do anything. You know, if you listen to Tim Cook, the Apple CEO, about 10 days ago in Brussels, he said something very important. He said, technology can do amazing things, but technology does not want to do amazing things. It doesn't want anything. It's a tool. A tool doesn't have a desire to do anything, not until we give it the desire, I suppose. But look at the numbers of things here, right? Detecting security intrusions, resolving problems, reducing production management, anticipating future things. That's what technology does. It's not going to replace us in our creative process. It will replace the routine. And this will be something we have to get used to. Machines in the next 10 years will learn every routine that does not involve human judgment. You know, monkey work, as they say in America. Simple work. You know, if it doesn't involve judgment or creativity, computers can probably learn it. So it's really important that we look at this landscape of artificial intelligence. It's based on Moravec, but also a speech of Max Tegmark, who's a really great writer on this topic. And he basically spoke about what is already happening is how much has artificial intelligence already improved. And this is the blue line that's rising, the rising tide. So it has won in poker, it has won in Jeopardy, it's won the Go game, it can do a call center, it can do debating, it can do computer vision, but then it kind of slows down. It would be very hard for a computer to go into a higher area of thinking. This is very important to realize. Will it increase? I think so. But really what we're looking at is this. The bottom line is what we have today in computing is not AI, it's IA, intelligent assistance. So scratch the word artificial intelligence and just call it intelligent assistance or computer smartness, if you want. Not intelligence like our intelligence. So IA will be absolutely everywhere. This report from the Cayman Islands I got the other day, personalization, analytics, automation of retail, robo-advisory, automated fraud detection, money laundering, a long list. That's the nuts and bolts of artificial intelligence today. And that's where you should be investing. If you get a little bit more intelligent, the computer can really learn and grow, that's good. What we should not do is this. We should not make a machine generally intelligent, what's called AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. And this is, of course, the conflict about how do we prevent this. Of course, China and Russia and India and the US are kind of in an arms race about this. So a very, very tough issue to see how we can actually do this. So I want to talk, when we talk about this, about the convergence of banking and technology. If you haven't noticed, every business, every sector of society is converging with technology. The media business is now technology. Music, films, television, books, technology. The car business, transportation, is about technology now. So next, banking and insurance are converging with technology. In fact, you could say if you're in the financial business, you're in the tech business. They are going to converge together. Digital money, the blockchain, the end of credit cards, parenthesis, I'm going to talk about that. And we're talking about rapid convergence that's going to be really quite different than the past. Look how many people are talking about the tech companies in the earning calls, right, of financial firms. Most financial firms think of the tech companies as the biggest competitors, and for good reason. And you see what happens here is that already this is quite clear. Reports are saying that's basically what's happening. And of course, many banks are looking to become technology companies. This Norwegian bank, DNB, says it will be a technology company with a banking license. And of course, you know that the technology companies are saying, we're technology companies with a banking license. Same thing, coming together. So hyper collaboration, fast development, working with startups, looking at fintech, investing more money on R&D, that's the future of the business. Because I'm not actually with Bill Gates, as you know, said famously 10 years ago, the world needs banking, but it doesn't need banks. Bill Gates said that. I think we need banks, but we need them quite differently in the future. And that doesn't mean they become valuable, less valuable, but the change is dramatic. So here's the German bank N26. Any German kid that's 21 years or older looking for the first time to get a bank account, they do not go to Sparkasse, they do not go to a regular bank, they go on their mobile and they use stuff like this. Commission-free, free credit cards, complete online transactions. You have the same in Turkey. But this here is another future, where Google has a search engine for loans. This is not live yet, it's a mock-up. But you can search how to borrow money, and Google will automatically make a bid where all the banks can bid for your loan, using the search engine as an aggregator. And that's also already happening. I'm sure you have that here. But imagine this happens on your wristwatch or on Amazon Alexa. So that brings me to another important point. In the past, when we use a computer, we have to go to a big box, we have to type things and download an app. In the future, working with a computer is speaking. Natural user interface. Siri, Cortana, Alexa, Google Home, already happening in any language, anytime. It's about, maybe there's 10% remaining in terms of the quality of that to happen today. But we're going to speak to machines if they were friends. This will be very confusing. Here's an example.
Alexa, dim the lights. Alexa, play Happy Birthday.
Happy birthday, friend.
This is one of those funny videos that Amazon likes to make about using Alexa. But you can speak to this box if you haven't. I don't think you have Amazon in Turkey, but still, it's a great example. You can speak to the box as if it was a person to order things. And you can now do banking on this. I mean, clearly, Amazon is going online with a banking offer now. So every Prime user on Amazon will have a free banking account, a digital account. It may not matter for you so much here because of Amazon not being in Turkey, but I think the future will possibly change that as well. So again, here are the numbers, really what's happening with artificial intelligence. First, virtual assistants, automated data analysts, automated communications, operational efficiency. This is all basically nuts and bolts business. The competition of artificial intelligence is not the humans, is the bad software. And that's really what's happening today. I think we can clearly see where that's going. I have another great example of what's already possible using technology. Google has a new product called Google Duplex. You may have heard about. Google Duplex is able to call people on your behalf. So this is a voice intelligent agent that sounds like a human, and you would not believe it if you haven't tried it. Okay, it's not public yet, but this is a demo from Sundar, the CEO of Google.
60% of small businesses don't have an online booking system set up. We think AI can help with this problem. So let's go back to this example. Let's say you want to ask Google to make you a haircut appointment on Tuesday between 10 and noon. So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
This is a machine talking now, right?
So how can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m.?
Well, you get the point. This is a machine talking to a person. Is anybody in this room in the call center business? If this works, it's over for the call center. I think it will take a while for that to work in Turkish, the same it does in English, because of the semantics and computing. 22 million people work in call centers. So next time we have a closure of the airport in New York City, 40,000 people have to change their ticket. We just call the virtual person. Done in 10 seconds. So that is really going to change our life. And this is going to be available for asset management, wealth management, portfolio management, client relationships, anything in the next couple of years. And will a 65-year-old Turkish woman use this service next year? Maybe not. But you know, when it becomes so easy that you can sit on the couch and just speak, they will. I mean, today my mother is 83. So I've experimented with her to use the internet. And as soon as I use a very simple applications like television on the iPad, and all she has to do is open it and go, then she'll use it. It's going to be the same here. So huge technological changes that we're seeing in which direction this is going. So let's talk about another really important topic about humans and machines. First, this is clearly what's going on. Humans and technology are increasingly overlapping. And people are addicted, of course, to their smartphones already. I always tend to joke that the smartphone is our external brain, but for some of our kids it's the first brain. It's the only brain they have, is the smartphone. But I mean, this is really, I mean, think about augmented reality, virtual reality, cheap devices. The question I have for you is, what are the limits of this convergence? How far would you go with technology? I mean, in Turkey and in Europe generally, in the wider sense, we're sort of humanists, generally speaking. But if you're a technologist, you would like the idea of connecting to the internet directly. And this is not science fiction. You can already do that on mobile devices. In 10 years, you can do it directly with a brain-computer interface. Would you want to become connected like this so we can work faster? Who would not want to be superhuman? Well, this is a key question when we think about the future, because it's becoming possible to do this. We're going into a world where we may be useless if we don't do this. Like today, you're kind of useless if you don't have a smartphone. But, you know, when the battery is dead, we can still exist, most of us. Like Google Maps, you know, when you use Google Maps and it's raining, so your mobile phone fails, and you can still find your way. Not the kids, of course, but we can. I don't think we're going to be useless because of technology. I think what is becoming useless is to work like a robot. I always like to say, if you work like a robot, the robots will very soon beat you at your work. Because think about this, you know, for a long time humans have been taught in school the best way to be successful is to work very hard and very long and very focused and very productive. German background, yeah? Efficient. But you know, efficiency is for robots. Efficiency is great for financial issues, but it's not really what humans want. There's really quite a difference here when we think about the future and where this is going. The future is about these things, what psychologists call PERMA. Happiness, positivity, engagement, relationships, trust. This is things that computers will never learn, never understand, and never do, maybe in 100 years. But think about the reason why you are successful is because you have relationships, people trust you, you have engagements. This is really what humans do, quite different than machines. So the future will bring this. Do not let your kids learn anything that involves routine. Bookkeeping on the lower level. Legal discovery work, machines can do. Working in the supermarket, cashing out, filling the stocks, driving a car, flying an airplane. We'll probably have pilots for the foreseeable future for other reasons. But you know, the Oxford report says 65% of jobs that involve routine can be automated. Not fully automated. Here's Turkey on the pecking order of routine. It's actually pretty high. Whoops, sorry about this clicker, it's not very happy today. Turkey is on the top of the list. 50% of jobs, allegedly, in Turkey can be automated. This is not bad news, actually. I tell you why. Because when we automate a job, we can put new things on top. When the doctor in the hospital makes his rounds, and he's talking to the patients, and he has a smart computer with all of the photographs, all of the medical research, the doctor doesn't become useless. He can do new things. The end of routine is not the end of work. It's the end of routine. If your job is 100% routine, that's the end of the job. And we have to think about that too. I think that's the challenge when you look at these studies here, when you're looking about what's happening with employment growth, again from McKinsey, you're looking at jobs like office support, declining. Machines can do that. They can learn this. You're looking at things like technology, of course, increasing, because technology is everywhere. But here's the real killer. Creative jobs. And I'm not talking about musicians. I'm talking about being creative in business. That is rapidly increasing in all different countries. So the reason, we want to stay away from routine, I'll give you an example from the music business. You know, of course, that the music business has changed so dramatically. When I was a musician and a producer, I made 20 records. We were selling records, you know, vinyl records. And then we sold CDs. But today, if you buy a CD or a DVD for your kids for Christmas, and you give it to them, they will call a therapist. Right? They think you're hopelessly outdated. I don't know if you still buy CDs, yeah. But of course, I mean, what's happening now is the whole entirely new music business is streaming, and YouTube and Spotify. You have Spotify here. I mean, it's incredible to believe how much you pay for Spotify, on 60, 70 lira, something like that a month. Yeah. You get 21 million songs is what's on Spotify. And Spotify has 110 million paying subscribers. That's the blue line here. This is the kind of thing you need to do for banking. That's called reinvention. You know, in 5 years, nobody will know who Sony Music is, or EMI, or Warner, because the new power in the music business is the platform. And this is what they do. They invent new jobs. And this is the hopeful thing. You know, we're going to have new jobs that we don't even know about. Look at the new jobs in the music business. A playlist scientist, a digital media amplifier promoter, a person that takes care of royalties, somebody else who takes care of data. These jobs didn't even exist. I think what we have to think about the future of work is that I think the Dell study has shown 75% of all new jobs have not even been invented yet. 10 years ago, there wasn't a single social media manager because there was no social media. You know, we have 31 million people working in social media today. We have to invent our jobs. Our kids will have to invent their jobs. There'll be on-demand jobs. There'll be the gig economy. They'll be internationally. They'll be virtual. So I think that's actually good news. We have to take a wider view. When you're talking about the future of banking and financial, let's think about how we had already made the change in the car industry and banking ultimately from the building to the cloud. Banking is becoming technology. Don't take it as a threat. There's huge potential here. You don't become useless just because technology is changing, but you will become useless if you don't adapt. Today, if you're an artist, you will not go to Sony Music and ask for a record contract. You go to YouTube, and then you go on Spotify, and then you go on tour, and then eventually you may talk to the label. So there's a big lesson there for us. So that's what's happening with machines. Machines are capable of learning at incredible speed. IBM Watson reads 1.2 million books per minute. Reads, parenthesis. If I feed IBM Watson all the books about philosophy, you know, I was a student of philosophy, it was painful, but you feed all the books of philosophy into IBM Watson. Does it make IBM Watson a philosopher? Well, clearly the answer is no. IBM Watson would know all the books, but it wouldn't really understand philosophy. And there is a difference between man and machine. Data and information is not knowledge until you've digested it. And it's also not understanding, and it certainly isn't wisdom. The future of your business for you is you're going to provide understanding, wisdom, context, relationships. Let the machines do the numbers. It's hard to imagine today that they could do the numbers, but they will. Machines are no longer stupid. And that's only recently true. But think about this for a second, what we do as humans and what machines do. Do you really think that a machine could have compassion, empathy, emotions, love, understanding, values, ethics? Yes, a machine could fake to have this, pretend to have it. But there's a very big difference. So I think what we need to do in the future is to embrace what machines can do, which is the number crunching. Machines have one kind of intelligence, and that's unlimited number crunching, unlimited calculation. We don't have that. Bottom line is, I think for us, machines don't do relationships. You know, the most important things in life for humans is relationships and experiences. That's how business works. The rest is just stuff that we also do, but this is we have to keep in mind where it's going. There was a recent study from Broadridge that said that 2/3 of the people asked, millennials, said they love technology, but they still want face-to-face interaction for building trust. Okay, trust is not digital. Happiness is not a download. And we weren't downloaded. And we have to keep this in mind. If you have bad technology, people will not trust you. But if you have good technology and people don't trust you, that's also a possibility. So it's really important to think about where this is going, because this is really what trust is. If you're a financial institution that does this, you're always going to win. You're going to lose if your tech is bad, because the baby falls down. You're not in good shape to do that. But this is really what humans are about. I call this in my book the androrhythms, the opposite of the algorithms, the human things. Purpose, passion. Have you ever been in a business where you did not have passion and have become successful? That is impossible. No passion, no purpose, no imagination, you're not going to be successful. Will computers have passion? Maybe in 100 years. I wouldn't want them to. I think it's a bad idea to make them passionate. But really, this is where we're going. I mean, automation is absolutely everywhere. Robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, cash systems, ERP, CRM, automation. But here's the important part about automation. In this future, clearly, Albert Hubbard said it 50 years ago, one machine can do the work of 50 ordinary men. He said, I'm going to add women here as well. No machine can do the work of an extraordinary man. That's our future. Can everybody be extraordinary? You would ask? I think so, in some way. But we have to think about this, where this is going for us. We have to think about how we're going to get these skills. You know, the most commonly sought after skill in human resources, you know what it is? It's not your MBA, it's not your intelligence, it's called EQ, emotional intelligence. That's the most common sought after, and nobody knows what that is. Some people say women have more emotional intelligence than men. That's why some people say that women are much better off in the future. You can think about that for a second. So basically, this is where we're going. So Jeff Bezos, one of the most successful people in the world, he loves to say this, that every time he talks about the future, he says it's all about data. I do whatever the data says. I mean, he's famous for saying this. And then last week he said this. He said, okay, when it comes to important decisions in business and life, I've made them with my heart, with intuition, with guts, not analytics. That's called the heart set rather than the mindset. Now, which one of the two is true? Well, the answer is they're both true. We cannot afford to ignore data and science and technology, but we make decisions based on a much wider set of rules. Because we're not robots, and neither is he, even though he talks about it like sometimes he would be. But our skills have to change. Your skills have to change. The World Economic Forum has a great chart about how in 2020, the most important skills: critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, cognitive flexibility. And where do we learn this? Do we learn this at school? We learn this in life. That's what we have to teach our kids. If your kids don't have these skills in the future, they will not have a job. Because we have to create our own job. We have to think about these two things. I think this is the future for us, also for our offerings. If you're running a portfolio company or asset management, it's not going to come down to how smart you are. Because guess what? The computer will beat you at being smart. Today, you can beat the computer. Because we're only at the beginning. And the doctor can easily beat IBM Watson. In 10 years, in terms of knowing things, the machine will know everything. So how do we work with machines and how do we put this together? Clearly comes down to what I call digital ethics. The question of the future is no longer going to be this: if and how we can do something, how much it costs, if it works. The question is only this: why? When you're thinking about technology, using technology, you should not ask how much return does it bring, how much money does it make, and how much will it cost, but you should ask what is it doing to make the customer happy. That's the only question that counts. And of course, Amazon, again, is the leader of this kind of thinking. Clearly, we're looking at a future where we have to balance these two things. Do not believe for a second that technology is your savior. You will not save your sorry bank with artificial intelligence. If your bank has no purpose, no meaning, no relevance, you're not going to save it with technology. You have to use technology together with a purpose, right? With the things that you really want to do, the things that are combining, creating the value. So digital ethics, I talk about this a lot, is defined as making this work. And it's the #1 topic for 2019. You know the firm Gartner, analytics firm? They have just declared that the topic of using technology has become the #1 topic in the world. How do we use it correctly? How do we not abuse it? Facebook, right? Facebook is a great example for the unethical use of technology. And it comes down to this, you know, when we work with technology, how much do we collaborate and how much do we not collaborate? We have to think about that. So I want to summarize, and then I'll get off the stage finally. So first, a couple of points from earlier. Business as usual is dead. If you are still doing business as usual, consider yourself lucky. It will not last. Banking takes longer for the change, insurance takes longer, government takes longer. That is because of the nature of what it is. So first media, television, films, advertising, publishing, the car industry, and you're next. So we have to think about where that's going and how we can jump into a new fishbowl. I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to think about where that's going. And that's going to be done on those two things: using data, using intelligent machines, with a focus on intelligence assistance. Forget everything you know about how scary artificial intelligence is. Right now, the reality is machines can't do any of it yet. What they can do is this: help us to be smarter, to be more intelligent. Voice control, great example. I'm a great believer in voice control. It is a huge cultural shift. I haven't quite made it myself yet, but clearly, I mean, if we can just speak to the machine about our banking needs, our portfolio, we will do that. The end of routine. Make a list of all the routine jobs in your company, and then tick them off one after the other by using technology. And then don't fire the people that did the routine, but make them do new jobs. The key to the future is not to be efficient by getting rid of people. The key is to go up the food chain and create more value. Because machines don't do relationships. No matter how smart the machine is, it will not create lasting value by itself. And I think this is something we have to keep in mind balancing technology and humanity. So I'll leave you with this impression of the end. The two things that will matter in our future: algorithms, technology, intelligent machines, and then there's us. We should invest the same money here than we invest here. And that goes also for our education. We should not just create scientists and technologists and mathematicians, engineers. We need to create artists, philosophers, storytellers, designers, thinkers. That goes together for our future. So bottom line is, the future is awesome humans on top of amazing technology. Awesome is a good American word. Hope you understand this, but great humans, güzel humans, if you wish. So for my book, the last word here is that we need to embrace technology, but we should not become technology. When you become technology, you become a commodity. Nobody wants that. Thank you very much for listening.
We thank to Mr. Leonhard for your speech and presentation. Please stay on the stage for present ceremony.
Thank you.
Firstly, we have a video for closing.
Okay, good.
Let's watch it all together.
Data is all around us. Global financial markets are growing in complexity. The need for data-driven insights to understand and interpret them is greater than ever. Currently, business data is sourced from a host of processing systems, receiving inputs from numerous market participants, using a range of overlapping yet non-standardized platforms and technologies. Extracting meaningful information that can be analyzed to give simple, actionable insights for the business is a growing challenge. So, how can we help our clients to be better informed? At Deutsche Bank, we've put our data to work across markets and use cases. Take intraday liquidity. Growing regulatory pressures, increasing costs, low or negative interest rates, and shrinking margins all bring cash liquidity into the spotlight. Treasurers need global visibility and the tools to monitor their cash positions and liquidity requirements. And so, in partnership with Deutsche Bank data labs and end users, we have identified where our vast data sets can add meaning and context. Through clear, accessible business intelligence and insights, we provide intraday liquidity transparency and behavioral trends. Journey into the data and see patterns across the currency, location, accounts, and time periods that you need. A competitive edge inspired by data. Just one example of how Deutsche Bank Securities Services is unlocking the value of data for our clients through powerful analytics. In a fast-moving world, now is the time to explore how these insights can help you.
Thank you. Efendim, Sayın Leonhard'a bir kez daha güçlü alkışlarınızla
Thank you. Thank you.
teşekkür etmek istiyoruz. Kendilerini kısa bir süre daha sahnede misafir edeceğiz. Gerd Leonhard'a Sermaye Piyasaları Kongresi 2018'e katılımlarından ve katkılarından dolayı teşekkürlerini iletmek üzere Deutsche Menkul Değerler Genel Müdürü Sayın Albert Crespi'ni bir kez daha huzurlarınıza davet ediyorum. Buyurun. O zaman ben sözü tekrar size bırakıyorum Sayın Crespi.
Bizim ekipten... Açık mı şu anda? Tamam. Gerd, thank you very much for this really thought-provoking, wonderful speech. And you know, all the art, it looks like your artist side has, you know, had an impact in the presentation. Umarım hepiniz memnun kaldınız. Gerçekten geleceğin ne olduğuna dair bize güzel bir resim sundu. Ben tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Hem Deutsche Bank adına hem de TSPB adına burada olduğunuz için çok sağ olun. İzninizle plaketini Gerd'e Hakan Bey'le beraber sunacağız. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you. Teşekkür. Thank you. Thank you.
teşekkür ediyoruz.
Thank you.
Saygıyla yerlerine davet ediyoruz değerli konuklarımızı. Şimdi 15 dakikalık bir aramız var. Bu arada Sayın Leonhard'ın sunumları öncesi bir hatırlatmada bulunmuştum size. Gerd Leonhard'ın Teknolojiye Karşı İnsanlık, İnsanla Makinenin Yaklaşan Çatışması isimli kitabının imza etkinliği olacak. Görevli arkadaşlarımız sizleri yönlendirecekler. Hezarfen salonunda olacak imza etkinliği. Biz 15 dakika sonra buradayız. Aranın ardından yatırım kuruluşlarının ve yatırım uzmanlarının geleceği konu başlığıyla CFA Yönetim Kurulu Başkanı ve Genel Müdürü Sayın Paul Smith karşımızda olacak.